Choda, Himo, Ro, Zendo, So, Mande, Zawe, Mama, Rim, Tazo, Ingaran, Beme, Densho, La, Kade, Chanjo, Yinbe, Ba, Temba, Jo, Mazan, Jeme, Shera, Kade, Maje, Mama, Namge, Wo, So, So, Raye, Yeve, Yonda, Chaze, Ro, Deya, Ta, Omo, Kade, Para Sangha de Bodhi So Deya Ta Gade Gade Para Sangha de Bodhi So Deya Ta Gade Gade Para Sangha de Bodhi So Gere Tongda Jashi Shewada Mede Pemba Luje Bedo Sojo Ne Raji Dele Enjo Sa Shin De Jo Yeah, so yeah, so yeah, oh, yeah, Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta altruistic motivation, we should participate in this Bodhisattva discourse on the perfection of joyfulness or joyful effort. So where we left off last week, we talked about the importance of cultivating awareness of death as impermanence of life, And among different types of awareness, or sometimes we translate as recognitions, Dorjee in Tibetan, the awareness of death as impermanent is a supreme awareness.
提到七万三百题，全部说过，你是说的，考理说呢，300人说人的全部念下来，七万说的对吗？呢？这里读的没把人，看的七万说完呢，全部说多少的，写的结不了咱们来讲，结的也呢，那不是说过没多。没到那一那别嘛跟我说过，女性那一那没得把这些说过，300那一那考虑一种说过，也不是不考虑一种60就60些松散但上你对留了半点是别把它当把你别说他别那他那里这些这个看见。그래서 다 메타바다 이제 디시에서 메타바디 제는 솔로무시지 이제 디마케자디 이미 유제가르는 이미 유제데 디인스우다 템바니샤리 치와서다 다완남 텔레도다 메바이 컨데세 치와슈와네 템베쇼드랍두가 스다데 텔레간제 치와서야 너도 요 말이스 제가 너도 메자디 이제 저 최고 삼고리스 드림이라 템베 쇼드라도 어디 치와 저마디 템베는 가서 상로동야는 같이 약주들이 들어와 다 예보 담아서야 되는 일이야 제타비에 전에 라부지 제쇼고 메도 나이 나네 빼먹고 쇼고 디시는 이나나 메다브 디시 쇼고 사바는 이나네 퀄리 좀 쇼고 기부시부 퀄리 좀 알려서 저저 알려서 시송세 인상디 니도 르로 반데 베와리반 아오티탈티연르 오세다 디딜카제 메다브 치와 메다브 제야다 에네 카르데 네 레제가 상로서 제야디 거기 디제 쇼리스 어디제 그 카르 페데데레도 메도 페마카르 페카르다가 와서 메도 어디 방고에 메도 페마카 와서 공부를 왔다 디자조지고 되게 있어요 엔 디시스르다네 메다브 디시 메다브 디시데 마제나 쇼코라 테아요 말아 가지 처음에서 디테일도 아니 시도도 디죠 가르쳐서 신 상로로 신지 코고에서 아니 시도도 거 매래도 말이지 그 교환을 거야 하고 교환도 소소로 온다고요 말이지 엔베 레그 좀 조고데스 어떻게 레데가 수용 두제다 인제 이제 쉬시고 소지 차로로 세도 거 메다바 태고야 기제로 어디 그 출구야 소르데 까드부터도 그 메다바 토마 계셔 바디 계셔 타마 계셔 가가 있어도 한도 오메가서 인지부터 봐서 계셔야 나 여기 지고 송도 세대티 치와도 거기 치와마제는 쇼트하면서 어디에다가 도다 드리도
As Geshe read from the extensive commentary and explained that cultivating awareness of death is a supreme awareness. And Buddha, in his Sutra on Mindfulnesses, addresses an ancient Indian king. And Buddha says, "Oh, Your Majesty, so listen to me, that, reflecting on death as impermanence of life is a supreme awareness." And then Buddha gives a number of examples to illustrate his contention or the point. And he said, just as, the footprints of an elephant are the biggest footprints among animals, so is awareness of death. It is a supreme awareness. Just as white lotus is a special lotus among all types of lotus, very rare, in the same way, awareness of death is a supreme awareness. White lotus is often used in the Buddhist metaphors for something that's very rare. When we praise Arya Avalokiteshvara, you are like white lotus. That is the kind of highest praise we could give. So the reason for that is nobody can avoid death. It is a fact. It is a sure thing to happen. There's nothing mystery about that. Yeah? And so when we reflect on the death, then obviously we become interested. What happens after death? Does everything stop at death, or something is going to continue after death? So we know that death is not the end of everything. Something continues after death. So which means there is rebirth. Yeah? So then if there is a rebirth, what really determines that rebirth? So then we know that is the kind of karmas that we create and accumulate that would determine the next rebirth. So this is how we get interested in the law of karmic actions and results. And this is how slowly we get more interested in Dharma, isn't it? So the awareness of death really exhorts us, into Dharma path, because we said after death, really, what will determine our rebirth is the positive and negative karmas. So the Dharma teaches us, how to adopt positive karmas and get rid of or purify or stop negative karmas. If we never think about death, then it's rather hard for us to be able to get interested in Dharma. So this is why, in the Sutra on Mindfulness, Buddha emphasizes a lot about the importance of death awareness. As Geshe quoted last week also, great Kadamba masters of the Geshes unanimously advises their disciples that it is very important to reflect on death in the beginning, right, in the middle, and at the end of one's practice. Because in the beginning, it really inspires us, exhorts us into getting the Dharma practice. In the middle, as we are practicing, we think about death. It really keeps us, on the track, so to speak, right? And at the end, when think about that, then it hooks us into the next practice, so to speak. So just like the great Chandrakirti talks about the importance of Mahakaruna, great compassion, right? In the middle path, great compassion is important in the beginning. It's important in the middle. It's important at the end, right? Chandrakirti tells us, so like that, Kadamba Geshes tell us that the death awareness is important in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end.
There's a need is in the love of the bear damane. Tatal Tenzin Dorjee share them Debbie. Me the true share somebody draw to a day, Tong Shin the share. Tell the tennis. Then in Niam, then Sudungi Ranjis. Sibe true share. Jache things about your call. Jagan so never miss it, not so be spallop. The Madele said, Drew a town beaver. Sure, Koya doing la Jagi shower. Shagode. Then there are Sidoli Gene, Tabe comes and drew never chevachi. Give so start using to take that. In the show, Metaba Dishi, Chewa Linje to Samadi, Kalakal subject, Kalakal Soya Marisita, 30 today, Tejo, then district, then in a sugar major, in the Kadi, Koyandi, long road, Cap the Ragamaris, the Rick is a needed of teaching race. 30 Delaya, Koya Doyak, Lepa Doyak, never Gandhi. She the taste of the little da dinner magic. Easy music way. And quality to tabili a begu race. Nimida. Because do a tal beaver shula, queer doing like judge over, shall go de. Then the Sido de la Sido Geta Niva Yoris. Any years old dead of the letter China got Sizzle Gia Niva Yomara. She has a Chingam like his Tena Tabi Yomar. She's a Tanda the Tabi you go to your cup to Zonda. And you see, Tejo told you can say, I think it's around the Gaji. They did the dog so deep that.
So it is a high time for us to reflect on death as a fact of life, and that's sure thing to happen, and we don't know when it's going to happen. And why it is a high time to do that is at the moment we are all enjoying this fully endowed human form, and because of this life we are endowed with enriching factors, and we're endowed with freedoms to be able to engage in virtues and practices. We have the ability to do that, but we cannot take this life for granted. Once we lose it, we may not find it for a very, very long time at least, and so at the moment we are still lucky that we have this life. And if we think that, okay, maybe I can practice another lifetime. Let's say if we happen to be reborn in the bad migrations, it's very hard to have some positive thought in the first place. But even if by some osmosis of some good karma, we develop some positive motivation, it's rather very difficult to practice Dharma because we wouldn't have the abilities to be able to carry out our motivation. Whereas at the moment, right, we can have the best kind of motivations and we can implement the best kind of motivations because we have all the facilities, all the endowments, So this life is very meaningful, as we often talk about. We should reflect on how rare and difficult it is to find this kind of fully endowed human form, and how this life is endowed with 18 great qualities, and how this is greatly meaningful, but it's very transient. We could easily lose it. But before we do that, this is a high time for us to, think about impermanence, death, and so engage in practice as best as we can. So as we talked about this last time also, metaphorically speaking, this fully endowed human form is like a boat we could use to cross the ocean of samsara. And ocean of samsara is fraught with all kinds of suffering, and this ocean has these endless waves of suffering of birth, aging, death, sickness, and many other things. So this ocean is not a fun to be within. And so it's much better to cross the ocean and get to the other shore of the liberation or nirvana. And it's not only something we can think about, but this can become reality because we have the ability to do that, So this is why we should make most out of this fully endowed human life. This is the time. Do not procrastinate and get lazy as if we might get a second chance. Well, that's very unlikely. So this is our time to buckle up and to think about death. And so that will help us to be able to overcome all forms of laziness and then get interested in doing the positive thing and, not doing the negative things and, engage in practice.
Tata liulo ongdi tangde tume da tsongshungi liela bene liudengi chusangbundi chususi chunu xene samlayang xendi nye gawesi gawe na gawe mongba kye jimi kye je rangye la pyo ne si kye yudi chu le ye goba tar tari dungengi chu chenpo paru di jönebe Ludin Chodan Jawa Data Vole, Linju Tobis, Tusu, Pame on the E Molopar, Kanagaliela, Longdur Sushin du Sila, Sibe Dungeling Yever Junge, Tap, Long Labasum Yamso Lemba, Zoba, Zoni, Ni Lo, Ni Sola, Dembe, Numlegi Lolo Gobal, Beva, Jeva was. What did that dia Tezorni that the Karsana in a Sedan Pige Karsa Taba Tabishaba, Yuso Dunumugo, and Taba Tabishaba, Cesalia, Sia, Tari, Sugar, that is Siadi, anyway, Tari, never do we ever call the sugar mother, never made it on any pay your mercy, said Momba to the Nima, Siadita, to do you ever got the email or Tiro, said Tada, so the Romo you got Lilo the new lady on the Madame and Sasa Shigo race. In a Tada didn't see any Tijo day, the short Tijo day, the Hida Nikabori said, Tijo day means on the Sasana. Any church tangle barrel, China, she will give out your money. She said, shut up to your money. She said, Easy, that Rive, Yatenza Sebo Shego. Goya Carson Teriso never do change shots on Sunday guns, Shadis, and did Shego. That delay attention you got Tonsha to Linja or some go or the was some in that tension you got some you got that dog some go or dig it. They should get it. But the Medavada, Linja, the some good is start to that. Do today.
So as Geshe read from the extensive commentary and explains, kind of to sum up what Geshe already explained, is just imagine that we are at a river, we want to cross the river, and somehow we found a boat, and how handy is that? So we should use the boat to cross the river, but don't, how should I say, lose that opportunity. If the boat is taken by somebody else, or if boat is kind of wasted, then in the future we say, I'll do it, it's, less likely to be, And so that metaphor is used in the Bodhisattva's guide, that this precious human life is like a boat, which is very capable of taking us to the other shore of samsara, which could be defined as liberation or as enlightenment. Right? What are goals that we decide to pursue? And so because we have such an amazing opportunities, freedom, and abilities, and it's a shame to waste all of these things while we have it, because right now, really, we shouldn't be making any excuses here, because we are able to achieve liberation, achieve enlightenment if we do put our mind into that, get involved. And so for us to be able to get that motivated in our action, we have to reflect on death as impermanence of life, because that should snatch our life from us. And we have to think about the law of karma, isn't it? The fact that we are enjoying this fully endowed human form and all the freedoms and privileges and abilities is because of good karma's result, isn't it? And so once we die, again, if we don't create, good karmas, then we are likely to be reborn in the bad migrations where it's very rare to develop any positive thought or motivation, and it's really very difficult to do any virtue, because we will be deprived of abilities to do that time. But right now, we have the motivation, we have the abilities to do it, so this is the right time. So we cultivate the sense of urgency, urgency to engage into practice. And as Geshe read from the text, so this is the time that we should, engage in the practice of 3 higher trainings. That can take us, beyond samsara. So this is not the time to get influenced by all kinds of laziness, the laziness of couch potatoeness, the laziness of procrastination, the laziness of getting involved in frivolous activities, and the laziness of carelessness and whatever, not that kind of thing, but we should get real, think about the preciousness of human life, its potentiality to achieve everything, but yet it's very transient and it could be lost any easily. But before that happens, we should prepare ourselves and so that we feel much better, right? When eventually it comes that, what, I have done anything I could. And so that's the way to go. Yeah.
Oh, the look is the rejection. So no Shemurin, Chegulu, Trineva. She see Shabba Majurba, the Major Suparo song she was a Langro de Nimula Pangsaki. Tadi, Zuri Bibasha, she songs. Tena Kondi, Kiba Nuso Rang Dungele, Sane, Satata, Dinde, Dunge Jenge, Neso, Majepar. Tobe Kawa, Zabuling Be Lingi, me, then Shavaji Tobe to the Linji, Log Station, the Benes. She knew the Jawa, Junjabala, Tanga, Taba Jubal. Turige, then Jumar Nigabe, Tetoji, Dusrum Suma, Sola, Tadane, Songode, Nujuge, Odimja, Odim Shadow. Today, so that Tadaramo, you did in this song, that day, Karsa, Gobolutusuna Dedo, but the Tada. Tejo Lide Gamol be sonu Shabasa Sheba and dig New Shabas or Shawaris. What is what Sonum Shebu Linginis, never Jivache, you lead Trunia Maso, did the other leaders on what New Shavar Showers to the Mazakoni. In the Chipotle Rodo, she was just out on the powder Yamara. So the magical in the big Tomashin, Tabsi Shawaris, or this is a Mazabati, Dunge, Yazo Paru songs, said the Mazakon Doris, Sheda, Lambro de Nimulilo, Bosashi, Tad Zulus Bebasha, she songs. Oh, did it, Tada Luzid, said that this she should go, because that Kalekal Sisha was sure, said the Jawad Mamoli, Jawad Tata Yomori, Kalekal yourself, what today she no paint of Maris. You are the Mamma dish in the church with the day they say the Congo jury. I said the teas on the church about the bottom of the church of things you are a Karsa. Church, so that's the moment, Longe, Kejira, not about the Sanitary, the Duson, Lord Tanga Juice Lara. She said, yeah, lady, Karasa. Sena going to be shouting, she doesn't know. So Lavajo Medo did not law choke shoes. They are shook Shebuska Yomara, and the Yutung share. She said, yes, you did the Conje Pekaka, and the Jebes then a Yutung. And Conje is a top to Tokyo do never bear to Selamos, Jover is the church about the Buddha Yomara. What is it? Miguel Gango condition, the bigger condition, called Buddha Voda to Miguel tells that they can say, oh, this is what.
Great Indian Master Arya Nagarjuna, in his precious garland or Ratna Avali, tells us that while you have found the freedom at your disposal, you should, make best use of your present circumstances, meaning you have this fully endowed human form, and so you should engage, you should abide by pure ethics, etc., like all other, practices. And so this life you have is like a precious boat you could use to cruise the ocean of samsara. Don't waste this boat, but once you have done that, it's rather very difficult to find it over and again. So why it's very difficult to find it over and again is because, as Nagarjuna states in the Precious Garland, the precious human life that we have is the result of a lot of merit that we accumulated in the past. Is it like, we accumulate so much merit and pay that as a price that, can I buy the precious human life from you? I have this much merit. So we have gained this. And so it's not easy to find this kind of life without, accumulating so much merit. And if we lose, then in the future, it will be rather very difficult. And in the Bodhisattva Pratipam, or the Lamp of Path Enlightenment, it is also stated that, we should overcome the laziness of procrastination. The laziness of procrastination can manifest in us like this. We might say, what? Anyway, I will keep taking rebirth in samsara. There's no end, right? So therefore, I'll do some another time. So this time, I'll just kind of enjoy it. But the issue is, yes, it's true. We will be reborn again and again in samsara, but we are not going to find this kind of light over and again, So the ability to be able to practice Dharma is not going to be there in every existence that we will find. So that's why we cannot procrastinate to do our practice in some other lifetime. As Geshe quoted from his memory, great Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva, in this guide elsewhere, he gives us this metaphor of the rarity of a positive thought or virtue that we really do create. It is like in the pitch darkness, lightning strikes, even for a moment, isn't it? And sometimes lightning is not even that powerful. It's there for a second, it lights up a little bit, it's gone. So our virtue is, generally speaking, like that. Our virtue is very momentary. It doesn't seem to sustain for a long time. And it is not that powerful. It's kind of feeble, and very rare. Whereas if it comes to negativities, we do the negativities like 100% pure, very powerful, very authentic, nothing wrong there at all. And then they stay for a very long time. It's not like for a second, like it really persists, So our negativities are very powerful because we do it 100% and they, sustain for a long time. Whereas our virtue seems to be very feeble, right? Once in a while we do it, then they just stay very momentary. And it's kind of not 100%. It's just like kind of virtue, So this is our situation. So we think about this, how amazing that we found this precious human life. That requires a lot of amazing merit. So we found it this time. So appreciate it and appreciate the ability you can do practice and do it now, not tomorrow, not in next lifetime, because there is no guarantee, right? So that is the essence of what Geshe read and, taught us.
Lendege lang the sushi chenes, she knew the jaw Jinjabatang, Tabadrovala, Toriji, the Jumarani Gobes, the Topsi Jays, Jutsu so las, Tatatson Gode, little gay, rubbed the Sashin, Chawai, Nua Nima Jikin chain. Chekuntaga riva ye, ida taja chembasha. Mumbe dungi rabmoi, shoson tashi chembasha. Tikit namba, tikitche, dejuche, tikit namba, dejuche. Toka zanu mi lu, tidu tuyoso, yinson ju, rabdi jimde, tichevasha. Shesu Misheris, Odire Gojida, Shedane, Tabata Big Koa Tale, and he big George, Saji, Jeva, Lindsay, Jeva, Tisam, Tabata Shebo, Toto Mora, she had Jomo, what you and his son Jeva Geshe Changson, the Geshe, you said, the Tabari, they do the head of you, Togo Yaza, and it began. Gelo said the Gobel Pento Maris, Gobu Muton, Shuk Shelbo, Yurumbo. And then the big Java said a tongue to be Sanji Gomo Mother Party, young and so Jabo, the Tavishan, and Sidon Sumata, the Zong Zong race, or this or that be that your judge do not take pay some of the shade, show him massive head. You are Kazi Dushuna, that was tell him massive, the Tigal, the Kazatas to Shiguri. The Goya Kari said, you are the top shabo. John said a June, the Taba Tom do Kaza, the Newton Tommy Taba Tanjo do Goya mother, and the Jordan you told me Taba Tanjo total Warwa. Said that it is on the anything with the open new Mejabatoya Dodala. Any sonum certain sooner the Georg Carduna, the top shabo. You bought the Dema. What you got each other, Taride, Tava Digana. Any big news old things the young son, Yida, Kaledeta Karedo, to do near than Karedo. What today only some other cars, this summer, and do United the door top changer. At the top 10, any Gawashia, Tiangorodi. Here the Jinso, the Jibaza, they had any Koshushia, Jangodi, Mazan in any bay, knowing on the door, that knowing the Dora Todala, any Yinso doing the sound Tonshi, any bay, Yawashusha dog race, or that is.
Especially read from the extensive commentary in which great Nagarjuna advises us that we should really deeply appreciate this fully endowed human form that we're enjoying right now. And we should also recognize that this is the outcome of a very powerful accumulation of merit. This is a greatly meaningful life, very rare to find, and it is capable of achieving anything, but it is also very transient, right? It doesn't last forever. And so therefore, it's important for us to reflect on the certainty of death and uncertainty of time of death, and also reflect on the suffering of three bad migrations. How much suffering is there in the hot hell, in the cold hell, in the hungry ghost world, in the animal world? We are very fortunate. We are not there yet, isn't it? But if we don't do things properly, that is our future, which is very unbearable and untold suffering. So it's a smart thing to reflect on these sufferings so that we know what to do now, so that we can prevent, we can avoid being reborn in the bad migrations, and we don't have to suffer that, And so we are able to do that with this fully endowed human form. As Geshe explained, this kind of form is not the result of one or two virtues or positive karmas, okay? So we cannot feel very complacent, like, okay, I have done enough virtue, right? I did 10 of them. The Geshe didn't say the 10, I just added the 10 there. No, we have to continuously accumulate a lot of merit and virtues, because this kind of life is a result of very powerful accumulation of merit, not one or two or 10 good things, karmas that somebody did. So this is how we can encourage ourselves to engage joyfully in observing ethics, because ethics is a foundation practice, right? And we also realize that for us to achieve liberation and enlightenment, it might take successive lifetimes, isn't it? Yes, there is a possibility to achieve nirvana and enlightenment in one lifetime, but that is a possibility, isn't it? But it's likely to take more successive lifetimes. So we want to have good rebirth over and again to continue our practice. We don't want a good rebirth here and then you did a bad one and then get stuck there and then hope we will get a good one. No, that is not a plan, right? We want really achieve fully endowed human form successively, continue our practice so that we get to where we want to be, liberation and enlightenment. And so this is the time. We are not just theoretically talking about it. Yes, we can. We have the abilities. We have the freedoms. We have the endowment. We have all the conditions to do it. There's no other excuse, right? But once we lose this, then we lose the conditions to be able to practice Dharma, isn't it? Once we are born in the bad migration, well, maybe we think of, okay, Dharma is important. Well, welcome to board, right? Now you can't practice much there, right? The condition is not there. So we don't want to lose this conducive Dharma conditions. We want to continuously create that condition for ourselves to fulfill our goals. If we don't think that way, our life can be easily distracted, isn't it? If we never think about that, looks like we're going to live forever. Grasping at the permanence says, yes, you're going to live forever, So we get distracted, isn't it? And if we don't think about death, then we never think about the next life, where we are likely to be. Then we never think about the law of karma, what we really need to do, right? So this is why death awareness is a very supreme awareness, and it can help us to also develop aversion to the suffering in samsara, and then we realize better to get out than, go round and round in samsara.
Tibetan Lilo Pangbeasi, Lilo Poe Tapso, Shiva Metabata, Shiva the Yendor, Tomata, Tenye Lidini Gawe, Tsu Sumbo, La Yang Samba, Shede, Lumio de Zembesi, Lilo Jeva Capjones, Lume Gilona, Gula, Jeves, Sudeba Inos. Odio that any show me dabashi, any yeson dungeshe, any season you go, dear to don't do that. Take some look her door and the door is on it. Show me dabashi, she was any year to my chick, any tension ye gawashi. That is what Karza show me dabashi, she do carshagares. She no so on me amore in the leg on Jores or this is the any Yanru doing it. That usual, but the West Shuksha Sade, but the Gonzu Suju Gaga, the what Giwakato, the what she wore. She said that day, the what she was the Nirajatanya is already Niru doing it some ways. The Nirajana, any Koyata Grace, she showed something. Until ya Tenzin Dorjee got it. Tenzin Dorjee got you don't know, get it, because the more dear mother, my Dorjee get it, and Lanza, they don't say, Lanza, Quatea, don't say, your mother. Was it to get some the sun in Lord, that shook that Teresa should go to that look shook legal, but Dilia thought that this some the some of them who received that.
So for us, to joyfully engage in Dharma, we need to reflect on these three key points or essential points, if you like. The first one is we have to reflect on death. Remember, certainty of death, uncertainty of time of the death, all of that. And so when we think about that, then we realize that is not the end of everything, because something continues, isn't it? And so who I will be in the future is not up to me. I don't have that freedom. What will be decided is the karmas. Karmas will decide who I will be in my next life or in the future. And so if we look at ourselves as ordinary sentient beings, we have so much habituation with afflictive emotions and negativities. This is where we have developed such a intimate relationship with afflictive emotions and negativities. And so when we look at that, we have accumulated much more negativities and very powerful ones. So then we are more likely to be in the bad migrations, isn't it? Because we are much closer to the bad migration than elsewhere because of all this negativities, and then we can say, okay, what's the big deal? I'm not going to be forever in the bad migrations. I will get out again someday. Then I will practice that time. Well, this kind of fully endowed human form, the third point, is very rare and difficult to find. Once we get into bad migration, it's not like there for a short period. We are going to be there for eons and eons. It's very hard to get out. So don't just keep the hope that I'll get out one day and then I'll practice. That may be very, very far off. So in other words, we have to think about these 3 points together, right? Death as impermanence of life. And after death, what will decide our next rebirth will be the karmas. And if we don't purify our negativities, stop doing negativities, we are more likely to be in the bad migrations where there's untold suffering we don't want to think about now, even, right? But if you think that, okay, it's okay, I'll get out one day because nobody stays there for permanently. Well, it is very difficult to find this kind of life again. Yes, there is possibility. You're not going to be forever in the bad migration, but it will be eons and eons and eons before you get another chance like this. Yeah. So don't put too much hope in that one because you have it right now, and use it, wisely. And so if you think this way, then we really get interested, right? And develop a sense of urgency that, yes, I need to practice, and it's now. Now is the time, not, to procrastinate for later time.
No, there's some days, you look bang, Zhong go ba, Denba, Hindu, love do so, Tenum Sunny, Chingo Bongzu, Yang, Bongzu Yang, Sam Denji, Liu Song So Sa, Xian Yang, Li Sha Ji Gam, Xua Me Da Ba Den Bian Ba Ni, Ti, this some names, New do, Li Zhou La Bi Go Ba, Tang, there did the man, Xua Sam De Li La Bang Ni, New do, Zhong Go Bi, Tong Yin Las. Oh, Tim, that cause it, Tanda Dipa do let the Dishe on this, and Karsa. Tanda this, Tenzin Dorjee, Shaw Metabashi, Tenzin Dorjee, Nizo, the Sumbo Sun, any Shiji little Sana, Terra Karsa, Shina Shadi, George Shisho said, Yodi, Pa the Song Shas, and the Tanda. Jizi Shaw and Zeva loved you, no, Shine Capsulia, in the Shine Drog race, Shine Marto Nana in the Oyan, Tinjava Shine Cup, Shina Ragamarisi, Tada Nagishin, and Tada Hiatis, and Shaw met about the teacher you got any use of the any something is Shine River Cardus on the Song Shas, or this Song Shas, Tinekar. Then here, Nishada to the Nata, Nishada Liu Nibaji, Sumarim songs are what Tikala Ya, in the Chametaba, Tizen, you got your some years, Yaganga Sanadi, Ganga, Carson, any church in that, and she will be then legal, she was Tavari, Shiara. Tana Shine Gona, Tanda Taylor, dress go, Tigal, Shine Gongo Mazushi, and you don't get the Shine Goma Yamara. No. I said that Legat of Yag, Yard Kaduna, then some Guiza, and Tico, you did the Kari, you did Jana, Shine Gongal Jana, she goes Jana, Tigori, Love knows like all Jan, the Tanda, Shah Metabatea, died, Tezika, the Yaso doing it, covered Kadi in a way. You did check what some so
So as Kushala read from the extensive commentary, that of course in the present context, we have talked about the importance of cultivating awareness of death. And if we don't do that, then we might keep on doing the negativities that will precipitate our rebirth in the bad migration where there's untold suffering. And it will be really difficult to find this kind of fully endowed human life, in the future, right? So we think about all of these things basically to develop the sense of urgency and encourage ourselves to engage in practice joyfully, right? That is how we discuss these matters. But the things we talked about here could also be applied to many other occasions and practices as well. For example, great Bodhisattva Shantideva, in the Shiksha Samukcha, compendium of Bodhisattva trainings, that talks about these things in the context of developing samadhi or shamatha, isn't it? So where Shantideva says you should reflect on the death. This life is not going to be here forever. Yeah, and if you lose this opportunity, then you could be born in the bad migrations. Then you cannot cultivate shamatha there in the bad migrations. So this is the time to do it. So again, right, same things talked about to be able to develop a sense of urgency to cultivate calm abiding shamatha through this. And in the same way, in this particular text also, I think chapter 2 is on the confession of negativities or purification of negativities. Again, the same thing. You should reflect on the impermanence of life, and develop this urgency to purify your negativities now. If you don't do that, once you're born in the bad migrations, purification is not possible. You lose the opportunity. So all the things we talked about could be connected to any other kind of practice, right? So that we are able to develop a sense of urgency and engage in our practice joyfully. Okay. So what's stated in the extensive commentary is that these essential points that we discuss here, awareness of death and the suffering of the bad migrations and the difficulty and to find precious human life, all these things are talked about in this context to be able to cultivate joy, right, and engage in the perfection of joyfulness, right? That's the goal. Now, we talk about the same thing in many other contexts. So the discourse is the same, but the goals are different. So don't think like we are repeating the same thing over and again, like we're talking about the same thing. For example, in the context of shamatha development, Shantideva in the Shiksha Samuchaya says, you have to think about the impermanence, you have to think about the suffering, bad migrations, you have to think about the rarity and meaningfulness of precious human life, and then cultivate shamatha. If you lose this opportunity in the future, it's very difficult, right? Then in the context of confession of negativities, think about impermanence, think about the suffering, bad migration, think about the difficulty to find this life, so that you should do your confession as powerful as right now. Don't procrastinate to do it another time because you may not get that, right? And then in the context of developing conscientiousness or carefulness, we said, think about impermanence, think about the suffering of bad migration, think about the precious human life, and you should cultivate mindfulness and conscientiousness now in virtue. Otherwise, you miss this opportunity, you may not get it again, okay? And so as we can see, the practice, what we're thinking about may be the same, but the outcomes and the goals are different. Here, it's a joyfulness. In the context of shamatha, is to cultivate shamatha. In the context of confession, purify your negativities. In the context of conscientiousness or the carefulness, right, cultivate that. So the goals are different, but the practice can be adapted to different goals.
소소의 재미 동의들이 해다 말아봐. 시다 가마가마 심심하 강가 저요 해다라봐. 저 지송자 애니 해요로지 배 망보 팅 망보 해대버 대 그 고박하가 여자 애니 늙자도 가가 여자는 되게 이게 저요 뭐 디다 가가 셴버 시고리스 어디서와라 어디서 재미 동시에다 배 이 들이셔와도 상의셔야 돼. 저다 매바셔 어디 감사하다를 해서 등두들이 말이고 강가에 저와 자다는 이베 그 강가 좋아요. 어디 뒤에서 아니 어다는 시고리스 그들이나 배 다들 까듬을 남아서 서로 메타바디 배 토다 봐서 계셨어야 돼. 애니 가지 대전지가 계셨어요. 거기 가서 얘가 말해서야 지요 뭐 가가 대바해다 레디 카드 자 소조 여자 이내 레망 보시나 그 카드레 고와 주제가 여자 이는 도종서 디카이 샤로 말이스 이 소소 카드 여자 아니 팅 뭐라나 이제 그때 종요 말이스 디제지라.
So the point that is being made here, as Geshe explained, is it may seem like, if we don't pay attention to the different types of goals we are working towards, seems like we are repeating the same thing over and again. It seems like very repetitiveness. But that's not what it is. As Geshe said, whether we talk about in the context of Lamrim, stage of the path of enlightenment, or in the context of integrating Sutra and Tantra, like all the paths are interrelated somewhere, isn't it? It's not like these paths have nothing to do with each other. So the things we talk about are interrelated, and we should be able to see that interconnectedness, right, among different practices and the different paths. So that then we feel that we are not repeating the same thing, because we are working towards different types of goals, and so there's no contradiction there. For example, Kadamba Lamas often say that reflecting on death is important in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, isn't it? And then the Chandrakirti says, cultivating compassion is important in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Right? Seems like they're talking about different things, but they're all related, isn't it? And then somebody else say, reflecting on the fully endowed human form, rarity, meaningfulness is very important in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Right? Looks like this. Saying the same thing, but these are interrelated, and so we think about these things to fulfill different goals or to cultivate different paths. So we should be able to see that interconnectedness, so that we don't feel like everything is repetitive here.
So this is usually good that Neka dan Tadu Kundus Gawada Deve Jum June Seba Meba Tayeva Tabieva Juan Tap some Julana Meva Tabe Yamsulemba Le La Gashidroa Imba La Teta Gaye Shortini Panes Koe Dunge Nasoba Juwe Juni di Juwe Kanamato the Cheba the Beleta Duzumbo Ye Sim Shiruji Naso La Iwata Shabe Ongi Sugrasola Sim Choshing Guevatan Mag Namju Pami Gawata Jeva Jebe Hashi Gurjing Kasha Shevatam Luying Lembatam Shia Tung Mebe si Jeju Mangdu Mawatam Luji Kardang Shuju Hivala Soba Shudang Gaging Tung Mebe Shawa Mambunam Shibala Chuji Shir Gade Gamiride Tedala Gawade Sendi Tung Shibu Nyamba Shevi Jutang Shimez Kauso Dungu Tuma Jevis Jum Shirchuva in Bisheros. Or the data dog the Shadi in a Karsa the Gilu Bilos and Yamu Gilu said Shishis Los Kinchiwazero Kalekal Shishos and Kalekal Shayam. That didn't matter. Chawing he little said, was hearing this, or this was the Chawing his I got said Chawat Tepjalia in the brigade. This was Shibushi, Ben said he took it as a Zoshia. In the other card to the Zoshia, Kashi Dinagi, should Himashiba say, I think I got in Chawing he little race. Or this was the one is that said, they're going to be talking of the God of the church, the result of the church. In the church, the Juvala, any place they wouldn't name it if you go good, the men do but these types of any place they would name a chair, Mother. You check out of it in the church here, the dandy door, Chagu, the Gonzo Pesha, Carson, you check the order that said in Tisha, In the same method that the shall do as social. This is the thing you are the shard of our. She said, "It's some of those so do you any thing the audio? In the tea, do you have Taji of the Tatsi, the Tohota, Chibugo, Kiel, Taji, Shitty Shiver, the Shazung to the Shia Mother, in the Kolia Tashi of Majib Shin. You show his Ashuris, what this is that.
So what we have talked so far are all kind of meant to help us overcome laziness of procrastination, right? We realize Dharma is important. Yes, virtue is good. I must practice, but later, right? That's where we get into the trouble, right? We don't say Dharma is not important. We say, yes, it's important, but I'll do it later, okay, tomorrow. So to overcome that kind of laziness or procrastination, we talked about the things we did. So now the next, we are going to talk about the things that help us to be able to deal with laziness of being attached to, usually literally translating frivolous activities, actually mundane goals, right? Let me say, laziness of being attached to mundane goals. So what this means is, as Geshe said, as Dharma practitioners, right, our main goal should be, Dharma should be the most important thing for us, isn't it? And because through Dharma, we can find lasting peace and happiness, But what we find also doing is that Dharma has become a secondary thing for us, isn't it? Important is this life, food, clothing, shelter, name, fame, everything else. Yeah. So this is where there is a contradiction. We said Dharma is most important. That's what we want to do. But in reality, our life is all tied up fulfilling the mundane goals of this lifetime. That is the priority number one. Dharma is important, but secondary, right? So this is where we have the laziness of being attached to the, frivolous thing. The mundane thing is more important, and the important thing is less important, So that kind of a laziness, right? We have to deal with. So as a Dharma practitioner, we have to be realistic, right? We need food, clothing, and shelter to practice. We are not going to say like, okay, we don't need those things. Without them, how do you practice? So we need those mundane things in order to be able to support our Dharma practice to achieve the lasting happiness. That's the way to think and go, okay? But when we check with ourselves at the moment, that's not how we are doing it. We are doing everything for this lifetime, right? Food, clothing, shelter, name, fame, all the other things. And Dharma is a kind of a sidekick thing, okay, when I have, I'll do it. But, it's not. So this is where we have, we have been caught up in this paradox, right? Contradiction. And so we need to overcome that kind of laziness, right? And make sure that Dharma, as we say, is the most important. So then that should be the goal, not pursue the mundane affairs of life, because that's not as important as Dharma.
What is the here's another place? So huge today. You got that late and walk on a chip. You were Geshe legal to shit. She doesn't take Chungdo. She was some of your that should she did. I hope I know the shower. She said, Sim Dolo do the good. Direct with church here, the Sim Droka was your shower. What do you say? She said, the song, the shed, she would be some dog news. She the church here, the biggest Martin with dear here, what is called the Kobak to the Shion. She said, this is your Martin study, Karsa data, the deal, she would work herself. Shawag in here, the Logita, Nimbo is our deity. Sonja kept on to Shedaka to the Euro, what did you see? What said the no, did you see your Maris? Or this you are said not to share the Kongsiachi. They know don't go down so they shall do Yachi was Tombo Shaggy the Tigal Shana in the desert. Tombo Shaggy they know don't go down so they so sure the shall she not there called he shall drop to Ayamarama. Timber the thing total than the showing in Shinsati. Don't tell me, me out over the Tavitan, she you might say to Mara. But over the Menico, you talk more limas 休息呀有嘛是吧？这在抽烟有吧？结果这个在看见，都会这看这是多人呢，他马家生这样，都这样的抽过家能这样什么事情，心不在俺了，特别有他老多的什么嘛都能这个啥的这个是个的。
So if we reflect on how we ourselves are doing as beginners, I think we are all in the same boat, you know, you know, when it comes to getting involved in or participating in mundane activities, we seems to be very enthusiastic, very alert, you know, very smart. Like, you know, if we are gossiping or chatting, you know, how alert and you know, how much we enjoyed that. Or if we have a party, right, singing and dancing and all of them, then we really look like we are very, you know, smart and all our senses are, you know, are right, all perky. You know? But then it comes to Dharma, we become a little kind of, you know, just, you know. So that's what we find as beginners, you know, that's where we go wrong, you know, and we don't have the same kind of enthusiasm and alertness and smartness in the Dharma, you know. But yet we said we are Dharma practitioners, right? And so this is where the right way for us to do is, yes, we have to be realistic. We need a, you know, roof over the head. We need, you know, food. We need clothing. You know, we cannot deny them. You know, we need to be able. Otherwise, how can you even exist? You can do practice. You know, but this should be secondary. You know, if you have, let's say, I mean, food that sustains your life, that's okay. You don't have to have the cuisine and the best kind of food and, you know, that. If you have a clothes that keeps you warm, that's good. You don't have the brand name and all that, you know, Gucci, Mucci, everything. You don't need that as Dharma practitioner, right? If you have a roof over the head, that's okay. You don't need the mansion and the beach house and everything. You know, Geshe didn't say that, but to make it clear. But if we want that, that's where we work so hard to achieve those things. That's where we get sidetracked, isn't it? So Dharma becomes secondary, and having the mansion and the cuisine and the Gucci, Mucci get the priority number one. You know, so this is where you know, we have to think about ourselves. We have to be realistic. Yes, I need basic necessities of life to be able to sustain my life and keep good health, so that all of my energy and everything is dedicated to Dharma. Dharma is the priority number one. It's not a sidekick or a side thing, you know, secondary. And then also say, when it comes to study and practice the Dharma, how joyful and enthusiastic we are. When it comes to running a business, wow, we are very smart and we act like, hey, I need to make that money, you know. We have all that alertness, you know, man. Come to practice, kind of like, you know, that. So this is what we're talking about, the laziness of being attached to frivolous activities or things like that. So we have to change that, you know, thinking, as Geshe will explain more, right, how to tackle that.
Oh, gosh, go this, the go merit this. That's a deal to the Togo thousand in the pollution of the day, said the non unity, young Harishers, and this is what the Dallas go on, said the Tonsa Bunyama, said the Shushia Majo, Tabashi made with Tonsa Bunyama. That Chuma is legal, but the guys that the way that she is, she might use with them ever pay. What you need to go that said the Dujan or take a dribble of the tea or dead. So you are thank you, said the land Tonsabushia, Yam Duajeda. She might use only his own real. You told me was do the or did be. 새로 땡주 거기다 세드데 심은인가 통야리 있어 다 거기다 이제 세디 그게 도고다 도우듯이 아니 저뭐다 저 항매서 가고 시대에는 어디 세드데 심어가가 보야 디지 탐지도 봉조야 내가 이제 세드들 서로 동시 디시교 문지 쇼주야 다다 세들 시고 거리스 도고나주다 맞아 지금 리워리 뭐이제 아니 기라 사가시나 코카시나 세디 유노르 사사니시나 아니 코 소소시르드자데 키야니 코 Pesha Gomuchi here, Yomara, when the bomb the chet the Tunguriana, Korshayari, Penta Yomara, said that said the doing the Tuzoli, John some war, call Nimbo, and the code look to a shit to the Kiameva, or Tidek Samutana, and it said the no looks will go here, the Shukum Doro. But this is the some lot on Kevashin, said the Togu dig the 7 degrees. Shita Saya the anyway, John Shabuya, this Samutana, and the Shakin Suru, Shakin Suru, not sure lam, Shusha, Shusha, and Goroa. So this Samutana, the end Shagores, Takaje, said the Shabby him. That's said the Shabby him, the theatre, said the Shabby him, the two, the person, said the Tonshan with children at the Yam. And she might buy you so getting you so that Georgia, and this is Yiga Pongjoza, and Zabshabushuri or is order.
So in a nutshell, what's wrong if we let ourselves be influenced by the laziness of being attached to frivolous activities of mundane affairs of life? So there are two main outcomes that could happen. So number one, if we attach much importance to this life and the goals of this life, right? Appearances of this life, wealth, name, fame, reputation. Obviously, our life will be very hectic and busy, right? Then we will never find time to do practice. So the Dharma will diminish, right? Because, Dharma is really, there's no time. So that's one. The second one is that as we involve in the mundane things, usually it involves a lot of creating negativities, isn't it? So the negativities are increasing like anything, and this can precipitate rebirth in the bad migration. Not only like we are reborn once in the bad migration, then from migration to the bad migration to the bad migration. So it's like going from bad to bad, and those are the implications, which means we destroy this life and we destroy next life. It ruins, I should say, not destroy. It ruins this and next life. Yeah. So that's why. So we have to do this cognitive reframing, reflection. Then yes, we need food, clothing, shelter to sustain our life, to take good care of our health, and then we can practice, But we should not dedicate all our life to building the wealth and name and fame. So even if we succeed in that, we all know, right? When we die, we cannot bring $1. You could be millionaire or billionaire, but who cares? Everything has to be left behind. What goes with you are all the negativities we accumulated, So there's really no point in that, So we reflect on all the demerits of getting attached to wealth, name, fame, and then we develop a sense of enough is enough, isn't it? Be contented with the material things, right? Enough food sustains your life, good. Clothes that keeps you warm, good. Okay, shelter that keeps you safe, fine. So you don't need the best version of all those things, so that you have more time to do your practice, right? Because that is, what we need to reframe it. But if we attach much importance to the goals of this life and the wealth and the fame and the name, then whether we say it or not, the Dharma becomes secondary. There is no time for Dharma. Dharma is really not an important thing, right? So this is where we waste this life and, future lives, as well. So this is why Geshe is saying that if we develop a sense of contentment with little things we have, right? And then we develop more interest, in cultivating Dharma, right? Then it will sustain our practice, isn't it?
Tena tidale gawa ni se rejection or shakpa lelo je yin sheba tar chawa nyaba sha shebe lelo yi sher tida gobe ta zo ba shao dele gae yuni ta yi she yiba she deo tida lokba tu sum dang uma samdi goba so Tabe chuji gade pangne tomewa nyeba chewe sonde hingli so ji chimna nebe lenga bale gade nyemignes laksum kuales lame kuna Colomidation, Jesus Deba, Tumber Missy Ziba, then the new Suru Nyamba Jur, Neva de la Lela Gawi, Kim the Navy, Lenam, Da Simba, then Da do, Don Juru, Zoate, someday, Timmy. Nieba de da la ga, nieba de da le la ga yi. Ti de sha xi xi, xi ni xi wa xi, ti ni ro zhuo nang la sha xin xin, ti ni ni wo zang ji, ga min ju, nieba de da le, nieba de da le la ga yi, ti ni ko mo pa la ga ju te, Tinyam nani hindi dungin jur, teni pumbu shindi chewa jur, nyeba dera leni gawe yin, ne gawe yin, sheso kanda da chog shu yung pang ni, nimbe leni zombi shaoji semba dera ni, shera hindi shungan juro, shamba chole, Tendo, Chuyi, Hong the Shiver Show, Kanda Zoba Mevada, Saudi Mevada, Poma Meva, Tang Kano Shawa, Tiva Yons, Soa Me, Shaujis, but the Yishi Way, Temple Rad Shua Maino, she so loved you to Changba, she knows. What did Dakaje said the Nog Dogota, Kesha, but you look at the guy at the dog and the Yoyard of Terrace. Karasana Lame Soya Dabat Yams Legomaris, and Duju show you Shigumaris, Togo the Yun de Shigumari, Lame Kana Dugumari, and it should be Shugumari, Timajaza sent the own Shambunyam, Shimadi in the Divado Dieza, Nizon Karamadu Maris, Shella Digda, Kenya Shabu be, Dijiga Punya Regis, or dressing.
So in the precious garland, it is stated that if we attach all the importance to the goals of this lifetime, which include food, clothing, shelter, entertainment, parties, and all of the above. Then, of course, the Dharma will naturally decline or degenerate in us. We are not going to really listen, sincerely to the Guru's instruction or advice, right? Because that's all about Dharma, not about this life, much. And we will not develop contentment with whatever we have, right? Because we want more, right? So in the pursuit of more and more, we end up creating a lot of negativities. And so the future rebirth seems very bleak because these negativities will throw us into bad migrations and over and again. And so as we take these things into account, we can see that being attached to this life and this life's goals is very detrimental for us, right? Especially as Dharma practitioners. It really ruins our life here and ruins our life in the future,
Oh,
So we are on page 88. I think all that explanation pertains to the stanza 15. And Geshe, I would like to stop there today and welcome your questions. And we go first to the Zoom or there, I don't matter, yes.
So there currently are no questions on Zoom.
Sure, okay. Any questions here? Okay, good to give the mic to, yeah.
Thank you, Geshe, for immeasurable kindness. My question is in regards to positive and negative rebirth,
sure.
And the dedication of merit. So if we cultivate Dharma actions and dedicate it for full and complete enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings, is it still necessary to have a virtuous state of mind at the time of death to have a positive migration? Or, yeah, so I think that's it.
Thank you. Yeah. Toma gengi tring kranzo sungje de pekam shuju kadin shara shuro chesa again took the temper sungje namdi. Orang ngani shwe de insa ta le sangen choro wage. And then on the benata ji kevel le chwe chebor so kevel le sendi and it seems that hamje from the sangye to ngwa chebe inas wage. Chebe imen shidu kabli ya wage. Tanda energy kevel semir ye gorbe di mene kewa wage. Kevese maja ba imene taki moa ya kuche barwage di tula tene kewa sambulingi besu kwese barwage yama inje miji shidu kala ya sem kewa shegu ores
ale kaze shiga laga sigore
kenda namji kewa che de barwage semje tamje de saje de mwe barwage mwe ba tagarangi tula tene shidu kala ya kese maja ba ine kewa ya kulingi besu wa yama na shidu kala inje miji taki moa de chebel de shidu kala ya kewa ki samristan kugu yor besa kewa ya kuche
네, 그래서 뭐샤다 시디 계서 모두 저거 그래.
니 뭐와 잡아되기 팬에 잡아야 말로.
아, 뭐와 시나 양 가지고 배터 좀 디시다. 세대별이 뭐 디시냐 시리드 자냐 시가 나왔다. 뉴모드 계속 뭐 줄면 양고 디자면 인성지야데 여러 그 가자 레지 저와 찍어 뉴아카도 고마고 Music for Timmy in the Silaro. Leka Kada courage shook shy in the thing element is over. Shook chick by ina, nail she courage in the thing element is. And it does not have chick by ina. And Shigala, some Kamakona till Boris, dear songs is somewhere. But you don't doesn't today race.
Geshe feels that even though we dedicate our merit altruistically, but at the time of the death, it is important to cultivate positive mind. The reason is that you might have dedicated your merit before, but at the time of the death, if a negative mind comes out, right, and that is more likely to be activated the next rebirth. So it's important that at the time of the death we cultivate in a positive state of mind. And as Geshe quoted from his memory, to substantiate his point, generally speaking, the Buddhist explanation is this. What kind of a karma is more likely to be activated at the time of the death is the more powerful karmas, whether that's a good one or the bad one. That's more likely to be activated, right? So if your good karmas are more powerful, that will be activated. If the negative one, that will be activated. That's one possibility. The second one is that if your karmas are of equal power, let's say, right, then in which case, whatever karma you did early on before, that's likely to be activated, right? Or the third option is that, whatever is happening at the time of the death, that present, that karma is more likely to be activated. So therefore, even though we dedicate our merit altruistically, but at the time of the death, it's important to try to die in a positive state of mind. Okay, yeah.
I suggest that the most powerful karma would probably be the guru.
Powerful karma will be what?
The most powerful karma would be the guru.
Will be the guru, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you mean that is the karma going to be the guru, karma itself?
The most powerful influence would be the guru.
Oh, I see. Adakwana disagree. So Shidu Kaliya, that manzo le top chesho lama rovage. Teacher top chesho di so lama sama chaga marveso. That Shidu lama komba ina. Lama komba di le top chesho chaga marveso. Shidu.
This is mare le migyo de gyawa khar top sena siga. Or migyo top sena karta disagree sira.
Namju komba
le khoa chika da nya ka to komba ka larwa. Seda le khar shuksha migyo shuksha Miguel, you don't take it. You actually you are taking it. That when you know you know.
No.
Because it's combat you. You go. You have to say Mara and combat you. Combat you go. That combat you know. And it is a sang in the shed. Yamati mean it is in. Oh, this is what.
So in a Shidu Kaliya, so lama komba you be na di le top chamber chaga rovage.
That should do. Lama Gomena, that because Gizum and Shinako Gizo, the Jigma, Jigma,
Lama Kumain for
Shina Chidi on the Gizum Korea, that city be Deja Kara, Lake Kari Shuksha did that. You don't get any Miga, some of who you are, you said. The Deja and give some of the Hora. Then on the late on more big Shita Yamini to Shita Mena, then you do some of the solution. Yahoo in the current Nigas Yamada, that Shita Koma engaged with Siena, and jump to Yahu or Sigdota. Katamuzo, Shigalo Kari cases, jump to case, what is?
No, so.
That could not be jump to see the jump to Koshita Samoto, where it's jump to send any jump to see because jump to share anything of you that Ganga, Shazam Masuna, Kunjo Kora Chema Tangi. Jump to Sidon of Shan, she's on a any call mid jag dignity, Jag, Jalo, Bijajana, Yard, Marisona.
No, so. No. So Geshe-la's long explanation is yes, first, at the time of the death, if we can remember Guru, of course, that's going to be powerful karma or state of mind, no doubt about that. But what earlier quote Geshe-la made is not necessarily meaning we have to think about Guru. What it is in general in the Buddhist where he quoted from, it means that if we have powerful karma and less powerful karma, the more powerful karma is going to be activated at the time of the death, good or bad, right? That's one possibility. If the karmas are of the same kind of power, then the one which was done earlier is likely to be activated. And or whatever karma is nearest to you at the time of the death. That's why we feel it's important to cultivate positive state of mind that is closer to the death. So also Geshe explained that, of course, it depends upon individual's practice and habituation with your practice, right? I'm a great practitioners who have been cultivating bodhicitta, great compassion, love, all of the above, and many others. Maybe because of that familiarity and habituation at the time of the death, maybe they are more likely to be able to recall that, right? But for the rest of us people who are not that of a great practitioner, Geshe-la's advice is that at the time of the death, we should think about refuge practice, you know. Now here, of course, we may not be able to do the whole refuge visualization, right? Going for the refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, receiving the blessing and all of the above. But at least if we can recall Buddha or something, that itself will be very powerful, karma that can decide our next, rebirth. So it's important, to think about that. Yes.
I was going to suggest one other thing. On the tour, we never use the word karma.
Say it again.
On the tour, we never use the word karma.
On the tour,
because there's karma yoga, there's karma. There's 1,000. We always use the word imprint.
Oh,
we never use the word karma.
Oh, on the your tour? Okay, I see.
Yeah, it confuses people.
Okay.
So I'm just sharing that.
Okay,
Because imprint seems to be a better word. Yeah, thank you.
I think what I some Jewish sharing to one, the Koran, the chocolate pay there, chocolate pay the Dugal, Shiva Kabli, Paksa, or the shade is a lay for shames or imprint, in a Kuchua Mada, but some Jews and lay Karisha Tamarishim or Paksa to shade to do us again. Yeah. That's what some Jews. They shall heard your observation, right? That's not a question there, right? Yeah. Any other questions? Could you go at the back? Or anybody else? We have time. Yeah. Yeah. No, we have good time, so I think you will all get.
Thank you very much, Geshe-la, for your very precious teaching. Like Mervyn just mentioned about the at the time of death, a negative karma and positive karma. But we talk about the reality. We are living in the very degeneration time, and we can see the negative karma and positive karma ripen very fast too. So my question is, we want to ask Geshe-la, at the degeneration time, is the positive karma ripen first or the negative karma ripen first?
In general, you mean
in
not
general,
vegetarian,
in
okay.
general,
Okay.
equal,
Okay, sure,
powerful, ripen at the same time.
Sure.
Thank you, Geshe.
King Thomas Sungju Beth Pendo Chenam the cutting shiro says, Kona Chiwatan the did again, that's in Sanganzo, Yingme Tul Teddy or Wagon. Nikdu. And the Nikdu, same gen songs are, and then that le Mangosago Lapado le, Yamba Mangosago or Wagon. Le Kewada, Yabani Cherina, the Yingme Tulia. Well, the current mean cigarettes again, Kewada mean chair your Mika means cigarettes for that. Yingme Tulia, let me down to your Wagon. Near the Mika mean yoga your way, Yan Kewaya mean Yoko or a country again.
民族我知道，他提到多些人都是吧？多些人就我们家是什么的？不，这这个历史这个通讯用就是在这里面啊，其实年龄用是你晓得吧？但历到现在在这里，历在这啥？这个在这里面啊，这个是吧？但这边我现在年龄用就是那样，叫起码里面啊，这样样是吧？但另外现在就是那个点那个样子，但连续生活都。 但老板忙不起那面啊，这我这要的这铁头啊，什么的，这里手下的在这里面，那这里你把这在起码里面个意思，这到别人的下的这是。
嘛，这因为就是呀，你这么这样，来民其实给这个什么，给我啥的，到前面那个眼里面个什么的。
啦。
因为对里面了呀，马对呗，给我啥，没给我搞得到前面呢，这眼里呀，没个人什么了个。
我这是我这个来考完这个，你话个东西，这个这是的，钱的眼里面个是吧？
因为对可能了，但是这眼里呀，没给我眼里面把我这个给要么了个。
对对，就嘛的。
Just to make sure, right, we get the answer. So Geshe-la's answer is that yes, we are living through the degenerated time. But what kind of karma is likely to ripen first? That depends upon the power of the karma. It could be the good, positive, it could be the negative, right? If you create a powerful positive karma, that's likely to ripen first. Or if you create a negative one, that's going to ripen first. And this is why when we talk about the outcomes of the karma, there is a particular category of karma we call Tongzhe Nyingyu Gile. The karmas whose results can be witnessed by you. Right? That means we create powerful karmas, good or bad, in this life, and we can also see the results, experience results in this lifetime. Yes, we call that's one category. So it could be positive, it could be negative. It depends upon the power of the karma we create. Then we have a category of karma called good or bad karmas that we will experience in the next life, right? Next rebirth. Okay? Then we have another third category of karma where the results of the karma can be experienced over several lifetimes. Maybe it's after a few lifetimes later, right? Sometimes, you know. So there's no determined time with that third category. It might be experienced hundreds of years after. It might be experienced a couple of years after, whatever, right? In future lifetimes, in future lifetimes. So those three categories of karma. So Geshe-la said, maybe it has really less to do with the degenerative time. It depends upon the intensity of the karma. If the karma is intense, powerful, good or bad, that's more likely to ripen first. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe-la. But the reason my question is because we can observe, everything happen in the world now.
Yes.
We talk about the reality.
Oh, yeah.
So many extremely unfortunate beings, but so many unfortunate beings too, living together. Right? At the same generation time, at the same time. Right? So many people rich, a lot of rich people, they have a billion, 1,000 billion, but a lot of people so unfortunate too. We talk about the common karma is ripened together in the generation time. And talk about my individual.
Oh, you mean the common karma?
Yeah, the common karma. So powerful. You can observe, everything happening in the world now, and you can see the powerful of negative karma ripen, but the powerful of positive karma ripen at the same time.
You mean
too.
Collective karma, right, Bob?
Yes. Yes.
So the question is,
example is somebody right is very poor, but overnight they become a billionaire because they win the lottery, right? So that means the positive karma ripen very fast too. That's what I mean. You know,
yeah.
Because we're talking about a common karma in the generation time, and you can see both powerful, positive karma and negative karma ripen at the same time. Right.
Morala is something Sarwakin that under Yingme to Delia, any that also cheating the layer of Sawaragan. Charging the summer down in that drum shiba that things on other tongue shiva, nation more chung to go again. To the Migeva shoes in your ma me right. Yan charging the city of cheating the layer of Ziggy, Keve leg, two rows again. Yan some draw there, you want to go, Yamdo, you want to go to the name in us for again.
that because you went to the Muslim. Nhưng mà điều thì là mấy cái mang series giờ nhung rồi rồi mình sao mà đúng rồi và thì mấy cái đã đến gì đã chỉ đó nhưng mà thì là cái không sao nhưng mà sẽ rồi nhưng mà khác ngàn gì khác rồi và thì là nhưng mà sẽ rồi nó mang à nhưng thường常về nhưng mà就是没事见忙要的时候是吧才通过这我他才你们是这我龙秀你们是的龙秀的了必须东西是熊的龙秀你们才你们是的呢才人不要么才了家了吧对吧这那才你们推你们是呢毛主不个年那是蒙古有是推你们是不是吧是你们我才知道的这些
Now, Geshe agrees with you, right? I mean, it depends upon. Yes, we do witness many unfortunate, undesirable, terrible things happening in the world, but sometimes there are good things happening as well. So when we talk about the nyingma, the Tibetan word, we translate it as degenerations or dregs, for lack of better words in English. I don't think it captures the same meaning. We talk about a number of those things. There's something called degenerated life, which is that the lifespan here seems to be much shorter now, right? So that is a part of the degeneration as well. The degenerated time is where we witness a lot more wars and disease, epidemics and so many things happening. So that's we call degenerated time. And now this word doesn't work with this one, degenerated delusion. That makes no sense. It is the dregs of the delusions I've used, right? That delusions are more rampant today, right? So that's I told you, the degeneration didn't work there, English word. And then we have the what we call the dregs of the wealth. Although it seems like you can accumulate wealth easily, you can lose it very easily too. It looks like the money has no power to do much. It just easily get wasted. So that's part of the degeneration too, Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Third channel again.
Yeah, I just was curious. You said that Geshe quoted from his memory from the extensive commentary. I think it was Nagarjuna's extensive.
Say it again.
You said that Geshe quoted from his memory from the extensive commentary. And I recently ran into that word extensive, in maybe a different context. It had to do with the concise, middling, and extensive Bodhisattva precepts. So I was curious if in this case where you're talking about you referenced his recall from the memory of the extensive commentary. What does extensive mean? What does something have to be extensive?
Oh, the extensive commentary meaning, you mean? Again, that is another thing. King did the Chunjuk Java Sik the Wage.
La.
Chunjuk Java Standa Sik the Wage. Java the correct dechen, the correct.
La.
Java the dechen side the way. Chunjuk Java the Java Delchin second the way.
Dechen said, Mari. Dechen said, Mate. Take a lobo. Timari did a poor guitar. Fishing on those that the middle. Easy going to have a savage. And the dairy was Java dairy or Zavat Keva. What did it?
That Juju never gave a Kurasina.
Java Hungry. Java.
No, the one Geshe is using is among what we call extensive commentaries on the Bodhisattva Guide. And this is written by, Geshe said, a master who is like 2 generations before him from a place in Tibet called Zaba. That's not the title of the commentary, but it is one of the extensive commentaries on the guide. That's what it is.
What's the root check? Maybe that will help.
No. Actually, my question had to do with the term extensive rather than the source. I was curious about in Tibetan Buddhism, I just wondered what something has to have. What are the characteristics of something that is extensive?
Oh, what's the character of this one? So you want the explanation? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I thought root check, but the 18 verses, the commentary might be 3 books.
Penanganzi namju Gyeltsen rabudinde labarwage. Ko Geshe yin ko ya chenyi sang ko rabudinde karo yor Geshe se digda phebetsi dig Geshe jabrana sigarwage.
Ale Geshe se ade karsena da chida pe takda de khade da robzu Geshe se da dudu do mai ba heba jashe bo she Geshe se gota.
Well, the Tibetan word is like a detailed explanation. That's what it means. Extensive commentary means detailed explanation, not like a short, explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah. No.
So we actually had a question in the chat. Do the karmas of a child hold less power than the karmas of an adult? Since these karmas were created earlier than those of an adult, but their motivation or intent may not be as clearly understood when they were created.
Sure. Quran can show the deeds that are target on and the Pugus less I shall again. Pugu less Savada, me can be less Savani, but Lelia, top children your vessel again. So Geshe feels there could be a distinction, right, in terms of power. If a child creates, right, we don't know how old is that, and adult, because it depends upon the motivation level, right? To what extent you are able to cultivate a powerful motivation. So that is going to determine the power of the karma. So when we talk about a powerful karma, it could be explained in a number of ways, right? Often we say it depends upon the power of the motivation, right? That's one explanation we give. But then another way to look at is when we look at the individual karma, a particular karma, right? It has the beginning, we call it, right? Which is the motivation part. It's the middle, the actual action, that karma, and that's the conclusion, isn't it? If all of these 3 parts of the karma are complete, then that karma is a very powerful one. If one of these elements of the karma is, right, sort of like less powerful, maybe the motivation is not that strong, or motivation is strong, the actual action is not so strong, or the actual action is strong, but the conclusion is not strong, then that karma is less powerful. So we can explain the power of the karma in different ways, right? So one is the motivation alone by itself. The another one is motivation, the actual action, and the conclusion of the karma. When we talk about complete karma, we mean Jorngwe Chesum. Jorwa means beginning, Ngwe means the middle part, the action, and Che means the conclusion. If all these 3 are ditto, right, then it's a complete karma. Powerful.
Oh, this is what the love is on the Karsa. Things are not so you Tamil. Give a leg of the top soon of Yamana, Kuluya, Yaman, Yaman, Moamazan George. She cut Shatan, she died your majesty. The what condition to go pay Chatan for yours. What is there? Put up of it. Chatan for Chatu and Chatan. Give a leg of it to Sarasita.
So you may recall from the Lamrim teaching, right? This is the path to enlightenment discourses. that the positive karmas that we ordinary people usually create are not very powerful because something seems to remain incomplete as we look at the motivation or the actual action or the conclusion. The motivation sometimes is good. The actual action is kind of so-so, The actual action is good. The conclusion, dedication part is so-so, whatever, right? So that's why our good karma seems to be not that powerful because something is not complete somewhere in the process. Are you with me? When it comes to the negativities, it's all perfect, 100%. The beginning is perfect, the middle action is perfect, the conclusion is perfect. So it seems like very natural. All negativities seems to be perfect, 100% negativities. That's what the Lamrim tells us, right? Yeah. Any other thoughts? One more question, please. Yes.
Well, first of all, not just to be argumentative, but for the sake of clarity, Lobsang's comment about using the term bakchak or imprint for karma, but doesn't the term karma refer to three different things? The action, which doesn't have to be physical or verbal action, but mental, the imprint, and the result. When we say karma, we're referring to three different things. And
all three things, right?
Yeah, you cannot really limit the term karma just to bakchak, because this is only one of the things.
Sure.
And
okay, I'll ask this.
It would be
Quran condition the Losang the Pakja level again. Losang the Pakja get the shares on again. Jedang Anzu that's Tanya or karma less as your wagon. Less the Kalia, less Tanya Dinalia. Takin le Koran le Mushi share wagon. Leg Paksa share wagon. Leg debut some of them the le go Marvesa wagon. Until le say Tanya Dinala. Don't that some way the wagon. Le Mushi Koranche, le Koran. Lady Shabe Paksa share one. Lady Debu Harishing with Zerwa. This Sunga Lolia chick the dominant less la go Maresa. Other chicky. Less Lucalia, led the Paksa, they get Kakasu Chigo Marissa. I'm less a tiny dinner.
Did that busy card of show, less than the Tango shared of Delica Lunga cartoon, till less you are. That could share we got you in the Takabe, caught God over, till lay Paksa you are. That Jibu me at the Paksa, you knew, lay Koran that getting evil be. Directed physical wages now.
Along the leg, they will set you Kalata, Putaki, get Pausa, they will chat.
Oh, did it?
But the leg in bed, Jibu, they say, Sangbo, they will say the leg, about the leg, Sangboki, Pausa, they will the mother, leg, but on the south.
The shield of gods and gods are.
In a layer, Tanya said, the Jongo just led the mother Pausa to Shagu Maroge. Pausa, the Jibu, the leg, Tanya in our Sugu Maroge.
Paksa the lay Paksa Sigurati, so the lady lay Paksa that could was just the Paksa.
Okay, so Geshe say, the Tibetan term is lay, which is the karma. It does not, necessarily include the imprint of the karma and outcome necessarily. That's why it's often differentiate Tibetan lay Paksa, the karmic imprint, right? And so what happens is that the karma refers to that action itself, right? Now that could have a motivation part, the action and the conclusion, right? That's all karma. So when the action is done, then it leaves the imprint, paksa, on the mind, right? And then that imprint gets activated and then produces the result. So often when we talk about the result of the karma, technically these are the results of the imprints of the karma because the karma already, right, done. Already. So, action's already done. The karma is done, but the imprint, right, it gets activated and then yield the results. Yeah.
So
all three imprint.
Yeah.
All three.
Yeah.
No, only one. Only one lives in the imprint.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, but my point is that strictly speaking, we cannot really apply the term karma to imprints.
Yes.
That number one, and I was talking about in common discourse when we commonly when we say karma, because this is the kind of talks that you're giving, right? To people, people understand these three different things. Of course, strictly speaking, karma refers only to the action, le, of course, but usually we also imply the aftermath of the karma and the result of this aftermath of the karma. Anyway,
yes.
not important.
Yeah.
But my other question is, what is the result of a karmic action that's extremely beneficial to beings? Let's say you perform something very beneficial for a long time, heavy positive karma, but without any intention without any idea of future rebirth or karmic consequences and all that. So somebody's creating very positive or negative karma. No, let's talk about positive.
Yeah. So so you're saying not what is the results of karma? Let's say a positive one that is not intentionally created. That's what you said.
No, that is not created with the intention of benefiting oneself, future rebirth.
Okay.
That's without having any even awareness that there is a future. So let's say somebody saves millions of people.
Sure. So what would the result of that?
Yeah, would that be positive rebirth? It seems to me that that's not the case.
Sure.
It would not result in positive rebirth, right?
Quran going to show this again. The layer again. Rabana lady the coaching debu kind room big mind but Rawage. She not less somewhat than a cigarette. That less someone like Yawashuma, Yakushli and would teach to less some was and that Yawashama the meat love again. In there some game never said debu Rawage. In a less somewhat is Chevy in us Rawage. In there less somebody again and debu the candidate chug wrestle, condition mean the rest of that.
Condition.
China ben again that Nakawa Yabushal would talk, Kawa Chep would Yawa the Shadow usual mean the Kawa to go again. Did they make you never said Rocket? Get a lay up with the chair or some good in the Rocket. Jibul is some Madan and less somewhat in the chair or again. But the regular lay, they get with the condition again.
Did they lay this and with that girl that till a jibble Rame or Tanto lay after the river.
I let the Oscar in me.
Chaushimbe Jimata, Jimas, Gonzo, so you tell me Jimati, Jimmy, Dibunami, Dilia, Lunzu, Red Tongo, Dida, Jibato, the river. That Chaushim laying was at marriage. People, but don't Jimato, you call a single some Tangadi, Jibaya Zigara.
The way Geshe explained is, he said, actually, not think about the result seems to be really the better way of creating the karma. They think bodhisattvas do that, right? They benefit others, but they're not necessarily like us, like I want to achieve a good rebirth, so I do good benefit, right? They just do it, right? They think that seems to be actually unconditional, right? Good karma, yeah.
So there can't be an action without motivation.
No, it can't be. But the bodhisattvas, everything they do
That's right.
is motivated. No, they don't have to be thinking about it, but they're always motivated by the desire to attain enlightenment. So they are not really, even though they are not thinking, they're still there. But I'm talking about somebody who is an atheist. Let's say, that's the kind of that's what I'm asking about.
Sure, yeah.
They don't even think of the possibility of future rebirth. There's no future rebirth for them. Complete materialist, who is nevertheless extremely beneficial to people. Will that kind of that's a karmic action? Will is it a ripened karma? Will have projected the effect of positive rebirth or not? That's my question.
Yes, that's very good. Yes, very concrete one there. Quran that is something again that sure Teba maybe in your wagon. Sure came Malange. In a young meal pedal chicken in the lay your wagon. Sure came Malange, meal pedal chip less share with diggy. They would deal your sanguchai, the day called Chin to go to a lady town to again. But you were killing your mother. In a million, I would say why for a Dutch some of the in their lady. And of course, Kiawashuma, Kiawasam in the Chingi Caressa lady, they would.
No, she did.
Yeah, Geshe feels like that kind of karma, likely to produce a good rebirth too, right? Atheists, right, who have no interest in Dharma, but something helps, right? Just help other kindness. They believe in just helping others, right? That kind of karma can yield, good rebirth.
So even though the motivation is probably not sufficient, wouldn't it be more likely to yield it to be rather than projecting karma to become a completing karma?
Oh, I see.
Wouldn't that be much more likely? Not a positive rebirth, but whatever rebirth. Let's say they may be born as a dog.
Right.
living in the luxurious circumstances.
펜제기 레 많이 버처러와게 룹제기 레르버데 차거러서 다고 펜제기 레드 드시고러와게 슈얼 대바메게 그런 야고 채고인데 그 남샤 마싱에 로와게 이네 밀러 로고체 레 성고체 로와게 인데 레디 펜제기 레 차거래 말해서 그래서 난디 펜제 맞아버 채고 톱심 차요 말와게 룹제기 레 차시거래 왜서 보다
룹제데 펜제를 차고 말해 펜제 룹제데 가르서는 되서라 한번 그 맞아서 될 펜시에 되고서 다디 펜시에 로바케다 지 실내야 인두지에스 코벤 데스고로 사원들은 앞에는 제 사원의 펜시 소리로 다 두지에데 출리도 거로 이거 내 집으로 해도 쉽게 말아 이거 로바 출리다 로리다 거로 두지에스로 어떻게 이게 해다도 두지에스고 뭐이로 아마들 가래 펜시
in the Quran can say that the leg again. Seven of Pejig lay my budget, Rubject lay chasing my rose, lay certain
펜시에 좀 생각하고 그 뉴스에서 그 로봇을 쓰기로 다다고 무이대로
알고 로봇 레 Rubject lay 샴바 가르쳐고
뉴스에서는 다 뉴스에서는 디조 다디게 가서 모든 자야서도 다 있는 데다 그 레드미야 튕기로 가지 이게 뉴스에서 말다.
That's good. So Geshe thinks that in the case of an atheist, right, who have no idea about cultivating motivation, whatever, but who believes in doing something good, right, that karma, could it be, you think may not be, you didn't say not, precipitating karma, but it could be completing karma, right? That's the distinction. The Tibetan word is penje and drubje, those who are paying attention to the terms. Geshe feels that that still could be a precipitating karma, not a completing karma. So he's trying to explain the distinction between the two types. Precipitating karma, or the throwing karma, we call it, is just like the actual seed, right? That it produces the seedling, you know. Completing karma is that which facilitates it. Like in the case of rice, the rice seed is like the precipitating karma. The water and the fertilizer, these are the completing karmas, okay? So that karma cannot be, is not completing karma, but precipitating karma. Then I said, what can be a completing karma for that? Is that the completing karma could be if you make a dedication of that karma for whatever, right? So that kind of a dedication can be a completing example karma, yeah.
Just for sake of clarity, again, we're using different terms here. Completing, usually, there is another term for it, which is, and that's what I meant, but sometimes this is what is referred to as completing karma. Sure, yeah. It's a karma, it's like an environmental result.
Yeah.
An environmental result of karma.
So that's a completing karma.
That's what I meant by completing karma. Yeah. So living in a good, let's say a dog, sure. Living in good circumstances. Sure. The good circumstances are a result of the good karma.
Sure, yeah. Ala Quran dagi kasa duje ke le la samratan de dinde yi sangal namju ki da le sha sha bina le ki nami che tangde yo wa ke o tangde so ro de samratan de yi sa dagi pare duje le se no dinde ro je no dagi when a church deba megen che ko long ke nam sha ma shen ke che ine mi le ya bo che ke wa che ro wa press na da che duje ke le de ka la ma chen tangde ko so je ma do le ngo shi di chak ma ro wa ke o dinde samratan de yi sa
내 책을 내 책을 다 편지에서는 다그 편지를 다 공도를 편지를 공도로 저거 자 유튜브에 편지에서 그러.
Yeah, Geshe understood your explanation about that. Really, if we categorize it or classify what kind of karma is that, he thinks it still belongs to the precipitating karma category.
Question?
Yeah.
Penje and Dushe?
Yes, penje is the precipitating karma. Huh?
What does pen mean?
Pen means to precipitate, to throw.
Throw.
Yeah, yeah. Drew means to complete. Okay. Yeah, so complete. Okay, so with that, we will stop there today. And I have a lot of re-announcements and prayer requests. So any other questions, please save for the next time. We don't mean to shortcut you here. but I'm also a timekeeper. I have so many responsibilities here. Candy, Nenar Wani chapter Chetasharogan. Delia Kamju Narona, Shital Desai second the chapter check. Anita Lokoko second the Gab chapter Chigwagan. Then a chick Pimulia, young agent, she said, Debra Gablux again. They to make Kamju Narona, and then Patang set us with the young Joshua again. So we have 3 prayer requests for Shital Desai going through emergency operation surgery, Anita Lokoko back surgery, Debra Gavlak knee injured. So prayers for 3 of them and others you can think of. And then I'm also re-announced the things which we did last week in case you were not here. December 7th, Thursday, will be Lama Tsongkhapa's Khandin Ngamcho Day anniversary. So we will do a top offering as usual. December 7th. Yeah, Thursday. Then December 9, 10, 11 will be Nyungne, fasting retreat of Chenresi, Arya Avalokiteshvara. December 20, is that 3 or 5? 23, Saturday, will be Yamantaka self-empowerment. December 23, Saturday, Yamantaka self-empowerment. January 6, Saturday, Vajra Yukani self-empowerment. Right, so I'm renouncing these things. I think this probably already posted on the website or will be posted, right, there. Tuje Gola, Nyombe, Jombe, Senta, Tube, Yendu, Dong, Sanje, Benja, Bindru, Yayu, Gola, Shade, Go, no, because the Guru, Tata, they don't because the man, because the some of it. They don't because the man because the some of the so Gawa did maybe show page 3. Lord Gaza, we don't de Gaza, Chido, members, Tamba, Law, on the Johnny, Shogun, Jola, so page 5. Mawanda me, when ye and the Kari, Joso, in the center. Jungle Jawa, Yewa, Yapse, Joso, Mave, Shiva. Jimbo, Zebe, Shija, Ewan, Shandu, Tender. Longo, Tangje, Bebe, Bayuan, Deja, Yazu, Rando, Shabde. There's all Honda, says that Tombe, Yozo, Yure, Longle, Teja, Neve, Bedamba, then Company, Double, Shabde. Donna, Home, Zeba, Amdawe, Tena, Pendo, Jimmy, Sheve, Chinleje, Gesa, Dije, Zendo, Shabde. Chizu, Lame, Tuje, Melamda, Gesa, Dije, Chozo, Dodo, Chido, Domba, Chida, Membe, Dungu, Show. Page 9. Ramjan Jinge, Gombo, Zeba, Lodo, Jema, Shoso, Say, Lazo, Tamde, Tade, Shoge, Tode, Cheda, Rosa, Yawa, Chido, Deba, Zimbe, Tade, Jonge, Shinye, 要不你
是ông bồ so đề
chỉ
chế
để thực hiện cha đạo bên miền đường bên bên sao bảo sao 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 bảo làm đạo chơi đi养道让把也多少别都是这种养些东西养别些上桌那个上些工作些老手做这边这边我大些不下边这边的话国王不做这边啊是这边年那些长的。别说今年是我晓得说，这边广东不是这边他那节奏到吧，上边的家里可以，说的今年是我晓得，这上老年年没错，到这上面事情，老年这别着的，这的今年是我晓得。就说叫我谢谢是好的，昨天他们送给叫大家马上那边那边去到那边对说常住心着人不知马街把那解决些结果让我没不能空洞别我来说当年大我人不知马街把那解决别我娘吧没吧样不能别我说啥些别些这些没到账别到2000年的年吧上届行动没得为我如果让他行了这个说看着那边过来行了走看到的话接着生活天天叫做也下边谁的把天有些一当不如让那你要到要叫我跟我养到老大大天当中，多谢相给我